check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast. You know why?
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
What's up, man? It's the Afro Machine, the Wolverine, Mr. GMSI himself, the man with the huge F in arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my boy, my wonderful co-host. He's with me every week, All Elite AJ, Big Match AJ. How you doing, AJ?
Doing good, man. Same old with me. Caught AEW last night. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, man, I actually didn't catch it last night. I was feeling a bit under the weather, so I went to sleep a little bit early, but I woke up and caught the entire show first thing in the morning and thought that they delivered, honestly, a really impressive show. I wish I had stayed up for it because it was entertaining enough for that much. And they delivered a good enough show that the rating was well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But, yeah, a really solid Dynamite this week, right?
Definitely.
It's nice to see just a solid Dynamite, and they've been consistently solid, but something about this one, I just had a different energy, something about it when I was tuned in. It was really, really entertaining.
Well, you have maybe you also had the benefit of skipping all the commercials and stuff, but I would say it was a pretty good show, even with my mini commercials. I really like Pac coming back, having a match, and it not being a squash match. I kind of wanted it to be a squash match, but as it went on, I appreciated it that it wasn't. The stuff going on with Eddie Kingston's pretty fucking crazy. The stuff going on with Jon Moxley's cool. Everything, the Jon Moxley being like, there's a whole lot to talk about is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's a fair point. There is a lot to talk about. Let's quickly talk about the ratings. AEW putting together a solid rating this week, something like 880,000, right?
850.
So a solid number, nearly 900, right in the middle, I guess you could say, but back up to the 800,000 viewers situation, which is exactly what you want to see for AEW, right?
Yeah, and NXT drew, I think, 638, and so it was a pretty significant victory for AEW. And again, we don't really care about that, but it's worth mentioning that it was like a 200,000 gap.
Paul got buried. Hunter buried.
Yeah, it kind of did.
Nah, it was a solid showing. Like we always say, nice to see 1.4 million people tuned into wrestling last night. But as always, we're mainly concerned with what AEW did, so it's nice to see a positive number from AEW. That's mainly my biggest takeaway in terms of news. The only news note I really have to speak on is FTR was the top of the PWI 500 for tag teams, and that's just good to note. Like they did this special thing for tag teams this year, actually, because tag team wrestling has just gotten that much more entertaining because of guys like FTR. So it makes a lot of sense. They also included a couple of WWE women's tag teams that I thought was cool too, because we are seeing that in AEW as well. So the growth of just tag team wrestling as a whole for both divisions, I think, is very important, especially with PWI doing this. So shout out to FTR.
Definitely.
Top guys, bro, top guys. Matt Sydal has also signed a deal with AEW. I'm sure people speculated that this was already actually a done deal previously, but they just announced it over the weekend that he's officially signed on to a long-term deal with them, not just a couple of appearances, so that's cool. He's a really talented athlete, so I'm happy to see him within the company in an official aspect, I suppose.
A lot of potential with Matt Sydal. I don't know how far he'll go, but he definitely has potential to go pretty far, at least like to the TNT title elevated area.
Yeah, I mean, he is a little bit older, but I think you are right there that he has a lot of potential to go a long ways in AEW, and yeah, I think he's just a solid name to add to the AEW roster, so I'm excited about that as well. And wasn't there a potential, AJ, you could speak on this a little bit better than I can, that Sydal wasn't even the initial choice to bring in, right?
That's right. It was Nick Gage, supposedly. And this is just what I'm reading on Instagram and Twitter, but apparently the guy who was supposed to be the Joker card in the Battle Royal was going to be Nick Gage, but he had an injury, and it's unclear what Nick Gage is going to be doing in his wrestling career because of the injury, and COVID and everything else that goes along with that.
Yeah, right.
It sucks because, dude, I would have loved it if it was Nick Gage. Not that I don't love Matt Sydal, but Nick Gage, goddamn, I would pop so hard.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. I think that Gage would have been a solid addition to what AEW had going on, and we had speculated on that, sort of not even legitimately, more so in terms of like dream booking aspect. I think that we wanted Gage to be brought in and saw the potential for him in AEW, and I still think there is a lot of potential, and I hope he gets the opportunity to be brought in the fold. So Seidel is a solid replacement nonetheless, and a great addition to the AEW roster. So excited there. And we started out Dynamite with two fresh new faces for the Dynamite roster. At least I think they've had a couple of matches on Dark, but I have not seen much from these two guys. Top Flight.
I've seen one of their matches, and it was very good, and this one lived up to my expectations for sure.
And they did a great job at producing a video package for these two guys, talking about what inspired them, how they got into creating their own style from a mixture of the Young Bucks and the Motor City Machine Guns and other teams that we might not even look at as the legendary tag teams, but they kind of are. That's where these younger teams are learning from. So I thought the video package was awesome. I was really excited that they did that. It was a great introduction to two guys I'm not familiar with, who are 19 and 21 respectively, two brothers that I'm immediately a fan of these guys. Top Flight, I'm big fans of these guys. Like, I'm very excited they're added to the roster.
Yeah, me too, man. Is it official that they're signed?
Okay, fair enough. I don't know that they're officially signed, but if they're not, they should be, because they're two, like I said, two young guys with so much talent. They did such a great job in that match against the Young Bucks. And granted, it is against the Young Bucks, but and I don't want to compare them against any other teams within AEW, but other teams have gotten this opportunity and not
you have
looked
a point.
as good. You know what I
The
mean?
Young Bucks have a very good knack for wrestling with greener guys. Like, especially in PWG, you would see it a lot where they would wrestle tag teams that were not on their level, and they would make them look like they were on their level.
No doubt. These guys
that's
look
not
great, even
not taking away from Top Flight at all.
Yeah, even in their hype video, they looked really great. So I hope that they do get a continued run, and it kind of looked like it because post-match we have TH2 attacking Top Flight, the Young Bucks making the save, and this wasn't just a squash match. Top Flight actually got a little bit of offense in here. This match went about 9 minutes before the Young Bucks pick up the victory. I didn't really have much doubt that they would lose, the Young Bucks that is, but I didn't have any thought that they would lose, I should say. But the commentary did a good job at putting those seeds in your mind, talking about Private Party beating the Young Bucks in an upset fashion in the past, and how the Young Bucks sometimes don't take younger tag teams as serious. So I thought commentary did a good job at trying to make us believe that, despite the fact that it would have been hard to believe. But I do think we'll potentially get TH2 versus Top Flight down the line, and that's a cool little introduction storyline. I think these guys, I don't know, again, if they've been signed officially, but just the hype video and then the match and the post-match angle that was built with it, I feel like they're going to have a run, like a real run within AEW. So
definitely gonna have a run. They're definitely signed for dates, that's for sure. I don't know if they're signed to the company, but they definitely have a plan for these guys with TH2, and I'm excited to see these guys wrestle TH2. That sounds like a great matchup.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's another solid match to make two younger guys look good up against some established veteran talent who can do a good job at elevating them. So they did a solid job there. They then run down the card that we have for the rest of the show after giving us the Inner Circle going to Las Vegas, at which point they all gamble. There's a bunch of different stuff in this that I can't even go through all of the shenanigans that really enhanced how much fun this was. It was just kind of like AEW does. What is the name of the movie? It's The Hangover. Very much AEW doing their own takeoff of The Hangover. Conan at one point pulls up in a limousine, gets everyone in the car, and they smoke it out. So they don't say exactly what they're doing, but I thought that was a lot of fun too. Like, they just had a lot of fun with this, the time in Vegas, and split it up into two parts. So that was good. Solid little video here, right, AJ?
Definitely. I really appreciate this because if this was WWE, and I know I shouldn't compare, but if this was WWE, we would have seen this video play out in like 4 or 5 different clips. Instead, we saw it play out in 2. And that's really refreshing that they're not going, look at them in Las Vegas.
That's a really good point, because in some ways, as a fan who's used to that, I almost wondered why they didn't do that, why they did this in such a long fashion. But at the same time, I kind of enjoyed it because it being on TNT Network, that's kind of the type of stuff you would normally see on that network during the day, at least with their television shows and stuff. So going in a more scripted realm for a backstage segment or a segment where they're in Las Vegas was a lot of fun to me. I thought they did this in a really smart way, and it was like a solid 5, 6, 7 minutes, but it was good. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
So, nothing to really complain about there. They then have John Moxley come on the screen. He tells a story. He cuts a good promo. Well, no, before we get to that point, I do want to talk about the promo video that they did for the company in general. It felt like almost a signification of we're rolling into a new season. Our first year is behind us, and we're now moving on to the next year. What does the next year hold for us as characters, as talent, as athletes? This was a cool promo video that
it was great.
I thought was really well done. I think they've done a good job at videos like this with commercials to show non-fans or maybe former wrestling fans what AEW brings to the table, and I think that will continue to help over the next couple of years. AEW's numbers are going to continue to grow, while other companies will continue to dwindle, and it's going to have to do with stuff like this, how they're presenting themselves in this nature to a massive audience. I think that this will be utilized consistently throughout cable television as a commercial, not just the promo. It'll obviously be condensed a little bit, but yeah, I thought they did a really good job with that video.
Really good job. Very well done. Excellently produced. Made the company look really strong and something that you want to check out.
A solid just showcase of the last year, too, of the talent they've built up over the last year as well. Some of the talent that they focused in on were real big parts of it in terms of, like, Britt Baker, Hangman Page, people like that, MJF especially, guys that you've seen them put the last year into grooming, and I had a lot of fun just in watching that. It made me think about some stuff where AEW is going next year. Again, we talked about it, I think, last week's show. Just I'm excited for a new year, a new season, and this kind of signified that for me.
Mm-hmm.
We then get Moxley cutting a promo like he always does. He cut a really good one talking about how his dad picked him up from a police station and told him, son, we're the good guys, and just sort of incorporated that story into what he has going on to his situation with Kenny Omega. He talks about how tonight he's going to walk to the ring, sign the contract, look Omega in the eye, shake his hand, let him know in no uncertain terms that he's the best wrestler in the world. This was a solid promo from Mox. It didn't get too intense, which is kind of where I'm waiting for it to get, but I feel like this is laying the seeds for that intensity from Moxley. He got very real in this one, you could say.
Yeah, the thing is, I wouldn't even mind if it doesn't get really intense, if it stays cerebral, because this was so well delivered. This was such it comes from the vein. It was a real
intense
promo
without
about
the intensity, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely, and I really wouldn't mind if this was the standard for the promos we're going to be getting. I don't expect that it will be, but if it were, I'd be perfectly fine, because this was fantastic, and we'll have more to talk about with Kenny Omega and Moxley later in the show.
Yeah, and in the middle of this promo, he drops the gem that he and Renee are having a child. So that that got Twitter
congratulations,
ablaze. So,
Moxley and Renee.
Shout out to Mox. He was using his quarantine time properly. So after this, we get Miro joining commentary for the Orange Cassidy versus Kip Sabian match. Orange Cassidy picking up the win in about 11 minutes. I thought this was a pretty solid match. There were a couple hiccups throughout it, but otherwise they did a good job with it. And Kip is a solid wrestler and against a guy like Orange Cassidy. And I think it's a decent storyline to get Miro incorporated to the company as well. So I liked it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I liked it too. I thought they both put on a good match. I thought maybe it could have been shorter, just by like a couple minutes, but that's about it. And that's a nitpick. Like, I really don't care that it's 11 minutes. It was perfectly fine.
I do, but I don't, because to an extent, like, these are kind of like, well, Orange is definitely like an upper mid-card guy, but Kip is pretty much like a lower mid-card guy. And when it's two talents of this caliber, I wish that they would just go solid 9 and call it a day. And that is just 2 minutes, and that's not a big deal, but compared to the Young Bucks versus Top Flight match earlier in the show, I'm not saying that match should have had more time. I'm saying that felt like the perfect amount of time, and this would probably also have felt like the perfect amount of time if you just shave off a couple minutes, save those lengthier matches for the pay-per-view or just more important matchups. And we'll kind of get into that more with the Pac versus the Blade match as well. So
yeah.
Post-match, Miro takes out Orange Cassidy. The best friends run him and Kip Sabian off. So just continuing this mini feud they have going with these guys. And it's a solid mini feud, man. I like where AEW has now almost made it clear to me, at least as a fan, how they book stuff. Like, this is a mini feud that goes on in between pay-per-views, and it's not necessarily the most important one, but it is still important enough that we're going to feature it essentially every week. And that's cool, man. Like,
yeah.
So
it's rad. I love seeing stuff like that, and I'm excited to see Miro and Cassidy. I think that's going to be a great match.
I think, I agree with you there. That's going to be a solid, fun match, and just to make talent that, like, these guys don't have a whole lot going on. They're not necessarily competing for titles or anything like that, but they still have something going on that makes them important, that I remember this going on every week. It's not just randomly popping up. So solid booking there. Can't complain about it at all. We have Tony Schiavone in the ring for our next segment, a contract signing between Kenny Omega and Moxley. Kenny Omega makes his entrance, but Moxley doesn't. Moxley's actually laid out in the back. Kenny says that Moxley's running away, and Omega will be there on December 2nd. Hopefully Moxley will be. So people speculating on social media, thinking this is just Omega. Other people, the people like me who want it to be a New Japan correlation, are speculating that Moxley was attacked by our boy Kenta over in New Japan because he's got...
Oh, that would be so sick.
It would be, and I agree that it's a fun dream element, but I don't expect it so much. I do like the idea that Omega, whatever they're going on here, though, at least leads the element of potential.
That would be so fucking rad if it was Kenta with the briefcase.
Right?
Oh my god, I would love that.
There is reason to believe it too, like at least a little bit, and that's something you do where you don't need even Kenta to be in the States to sort of build to that. So I think we'll get more answers to that next week. But what did you think just of this segment?
I thought it was good. It left me in suspense. I don't think it's Omega. I didn't think it was Kenta, but I don't think it was Omega who laid him out. I think somebody laid him out, and I don't know where this is going, but that makes me very intrigued. I'm super interested in what's going to happen.
Could be Hangman, Hangman trying to look out for Omega, get him an edge over Mox in their matchup, anything. So Archer too. Archer hasn't been doing much. So.
And now I want it to be Kenta, so I'm going to say it's Kenta.
But there's so many cool scenarios you could do if it is Kenta, just between Kenta and the relationship Omega also has with New Japan, and just like how many different crazy ways that could go. So again, I'm not going to put too many eggs in that basket, but if it does happen, man, that's going to be the most exciting storyline AEW could possibly have going on. And whatever it is, this is going to be the most exciting storyline, obviously, as they build to the December 2nd show. So, and I'm speculating more personally that I think that Mox is not going to win that night, especially if he does have to make his way to Tokyo for that Tokyo Dome show. It would make sense to me to get the belt off of him before making that trip. But that's just me.
We'll see.
We'll see. We will see. Something else we saw, we go back to Las Vegas with the Inner Circle. Elvis has actually joined the Inner Circle at this point. Maxwell and MJF starts howling with the Inner Circle after saying how happy he is to be in it. There were a lot of fun little situations here where Sammy looks at MJF and tells him, "I hate you," and then MJF is like, "No, you don't," and he's like, "No, really, I do," and then they start laughing, and it was a really good segment here, again, kind of building off of the Hangover, so they had a lot of fun with it, and they did a solid job. After they show the video, Jericho actually joins commentary and says that next week him and Hager will face SCU, and leaves the commentary table saying that he's still hungover, essentially. So, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I don't have too much to say about it, but I have nothing negative to say about it, if you know what I mean. It was a perfectly fun segment. It's a good way to integrate MJF into the Inner Circle. It's a good way to show
that they're definitely not all happy about it. There is some in the Inner Circle who are okay with him, and some who aren't. There's obviously not a bunch of love between Wardlow and Jake Hager, so it's obviously a situation that's built to explode. We're kind of watching the bomb be built before it is set off, essentially. So
yeah, definitely. There's a lot going on here, even though it seems like nothing's going on here.
And that's what's cool. If you pay enough attention, you get to see it, and they do a good job at also putting it all forward for people as well. So a really good segment here, a really fun one, and I'm excited. And obviously, if you like The Hangover, you should have liked these segments. So we get Eddie Kingston joining the commentary team after this segment, so he can do commentary for Pac versus The Blade. He did a solid job on commentary.
Oh yeah, he always does.
Poking fun at Pac and poking fun at the idea of commentary building up Pac but not building up The Blade. I thought that was a lot of fun. The match itself was maybe a little long for me in terms of this one. This one went about 11 and a half minutes. Not horrible, but I would have just rather Pac gotten a little bit of a quicker victory over The Blade. If it was the Butcher, Agreed. That might make a bit more sense.
I like I said at the top of the show, I wanted this to be a squash, but as it went on, I appreciated why it wasn't. And what I meant when I said that was, it Pac has been gone for so long, and this is a good way to showcase him and put him back on the top of the shelf where he needs to be in a big match against somebody who isn't going to back down. And it also gives Blade a rub, and I kind of like that because the Butcher is so big and so domineering that you can kind of forget about the Blade. And the Blade got the color last week, and he looked like he was going through hell. And now this week he wrestles an 11-minute match with Pac. He makes him look good. So in hindsight, I don't mind it.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you there. You make some solid points, and as you make those points, I really don't mind that much either. So I think it was a solid match. I think it's great to see Pac back, and then the segment that they built up afterwards with Rey Fenix making the save after the Butcher and the Blade start attacking Pac from behind. And, of course, these two are then taken down by Eddie Kingston, the Butcher and the Blade, but Pentagon makes the save. It was very cool to watch the Death Triangle come back together as a unit because it felt like they're not really an established group pre-AEW. It's almost the first reuniting of an AEW centered group, and I enjoyed it. It felt it's weird. I don't know how to explain it because in watching it, I was just really excited. I was like, this is cool. This is a sweet storyline that I buy into as a fan. I guess is the best way to put it. But it feels like one that didn't have to come from outside. It's built from their history, from within the company's history. So.
Yeah, definitely. I love the fact that Penta came out with the chair and you weren't sure who he was going to hit, and then he goes for Eddie, and the Death Triangle stands tall, and the Death Triangle music hits and everything. And it's just like, I'm biased as fuck, okay? I think Pac should be a guy, and I think he basically is, but he should be a main eventer. Like, if I was booking AEW, I probably would have made Pac champion already. Because
and then your champ would have been stuck in the UK.
That's true. But what I'm trying to say is I think he is the best wrestler in the company aside from Kenny Omega. Like, pure wrestling skill, like, can do it all, looks great, looks like a fucking champion, looks like a badass. Like, he has it, like, for lack of a better term. So I fucking love Pac. So I love this. I was over the moon for this segment.
Yeah, and well, kind of just going back to what I was saying, these guys coming... neither of these groups made sense prior to AEW. You know what I mean? Like, the Butcher, the Blade, and Eddie Kingston is one group, and the Death Triangle is another group. These weren't predating AEW, so I just had a lot of fun with that, the energy from that. I think that this is going to be a good storyline, and because Eddie was just in the main event picture, Pac feuding with him, it's, like, perfect. You know what I mean? I don't know if they really planned it out many months ago or what, but this feud came together so perfectly after Eddie's short run in the main event scene that when Pac wins, I could see him being the first one to challenge Kenny if that's the direction they want to go. So
absolutely,
they did a solid job here, and I'm excited to see where they're going with it.
Yeah.
Backstage, we get Jade Cargill. She's attacking Brandy Rhodes. Well, she actually just has her arm wrapped up in a chair at this point. We don't really see the attack prior to this, but we do see Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero holding back anyone from making the save. Jade then stomps on the chair on Brandy's arm. She stomped a little light for me. I wasn't buying it too much, but I do appreciate the segment, I suppose. I appreciate the effort from the segment, I should say. But the segment itself didn't do a whole bunch for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have a lot to say about this. It's not like I have anything negative to say about it. I just don't care.
Well, and I'm intrigued, I guess, where they're going, and I like Brandy. Like, Brandy's promo last week still has me hyped up for her this week, where I'm still a big fan, man, where I can't say that I'm not intrigued in this storyline simply because of Brandy. And, like, Jade attacking her in the back, it makes sense to an extent, but I wish there was a little more to this story, because why is Jade doing this? You know what I mean? Like, why didn't she, if she wanted to attack Brandy like this, why didn't she do something last week? And it does make sense. She got her alone. They were able to do this, and Brandy was so disrespectful. So it does make sense, but I wish I saw the beginning, I guess, is all. Like, I wish Jade had, like, caught Brandy alone in the back, and then they attacked her, not just, oh, wow. But it also does make more sense that cameramen aren't there for that part, so I liked it. I mean, I didn't love it.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was perfectly fine.
Yes, absolutely. We then get a matchup for Serena Deeb versus Thunder Rosa. Serena defending the NWA Championship and retaining in about 13 minutes. This one was a solid match. They gave the women plenty of time.
I really like this one.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you know what? I'm not even gonna do the thing where I say that it was too long because it was a title match. It was an important
Yeah.
match. It deserves that time. So I'm glad they did all of this. Honestly, like for finally giving that importance to the women's division, and also not just keeping NWA and AEW so separate anymore with what happened post match and mid match. Because in the middle of the match, Britt Baker attacked Thunder Rosa while the ref was distracted by Reba, giving Serena Deeb an opportunity probably to pick up the victory in this match. And then post match, Thunder Rosa attacks Britt Baker, who just thought it would be cool to sit ringside after costing someone the
Yeah, I
championship.
know.
That is the goofy part of all this. But still, adding a storyline that doesn't involve the AEW Women's Championship at all, likely won't involve the NWA Women's Championship at all, but involves two very strong forces within their women's division. I'm excited for this feud, man.
I am too, man. The match itself was a really strong technical wrestling match. Like they were doing a lot of mat work, a lot of like arm and leg work, a lot of if you don't like it when wrestlers are rolling around on the mat, you probably won't like this match. That's what I'll say. But if you can appreciate like the technical aspect of wrestling and going into different holds while you're on the ground and going into different holds while you're standing up, then you'll like this a lot because it felt very raw. It felt very hard hitting whenever they were throwing strikes.
Yeah, that is a fact. These two have had two solid matches thus far. So.
Absolutely, they have, and they're benefiting AEW right now. Like I couldn't even fathom a 13-minute women's match on a Dynamite because I would be like, well, who the fuck would you put in the 13-minute match?
Yeah.
But these two can absolutely do it, and they did it very well. And then adding the angle with Britt Baker just makes it way more interesting because Thunder Rosa not signed to AEW, Serena Deeb is, and Thunder Rosa is the point of this angle. Like it's Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. So you have to imagine she's signed for at least some amount of dates to do this angle with Britt Baker.
Yep, and I agree with you there. And I just like that the women's division is getting more just spunk to it, I guess is the way I would put it.
Yeah.
Just more to it. So, and with some of the women hopefully coming back at some point, either from injury or from being stuck overseas due to COVID, it's just going to get better. So that's an exciting point, and the women's division is getting better. I don't want to say it's as great as it's been because there was a point where we were really, really hyping it up, but it is getting really good. After this match, we get more for the women's division because John Silver is backstage with Anna Jay. He tells her that Mr. Brody has demanded to Tony Khan that she get a title match with Hikaru Shida after she has been on quite the run, even getting herself ranked. And she gets a title shot next week. Mr. Brody was very convincing to Tony Khan, and it was a very simple process, so she will fight for the title next week. And she goes on to say that last time they wrestled, Hikaru took advantage of a rookie, but this week she will be fighting the new Anna Jay, number 99. So they did a decent job, honestly, at promoting a match that I probably don't care that much about, but they made me care, honestly, in referencing her record and the fact that she's been on a bit of a run and allowing her to mention, like, she was a rookie. She did get beat pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Easily last time. I like that they've made me believe in it a little bit, but it's interesting.
It is interesting. I like Anna Jay. I think she has potential. I don't expect her to win the title, but
Bro, she could. I'm not even kidding you. I could see her
I agree with you.
I
absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with that. I don't expect it, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But that said, I think Anna Jay has a lot of potential in all of her matches that she's had. She's not really offensively bad or anything. She's not great. And you wouldn't expect her to be great, given how much she's been in the business. But
she's gotten better. I mean, that's not really
she's perfectly serviceable, and I think that says a lot because that's honestly, you need to start building up with these women, giving them matches on Dark, putting them on TV, putting them in the ring, getting them experience, and getting them better to the point where you can build up your own stars and make them established characters in your women's division.
Yeah, and what makes more sense here, obviously, is to have Hikaru beat Anna, but make Anna look decent. But yeah, again, in storyline purposes especially, I could see Anna Jay picking up a victory here, and the Dark Order trying to hold on to at least a championship for some while. And it might make sense, honestly, to make Hikaru chase rather than just be a dominant champion. But another dominant defense also won't be bad for Hikaru either. So I'm honestly kind of up in the air with that match, so...
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I'm not. Again, I kind of expect what you said, that it's going to make Andre look good, but she's not going to win. But if she does win and Dark Order get a title, that makes sense too.
I could believe
So,
it, man. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I could really believe that she could beat Hikaru just because of the run she's been on, and the idea of the Dark Order potentially interfering or just like tripping up Hikaru's leg. You know what I mean? And her getting a roll up. I could very easily see something like that happen, especially with it being on Dark. And then you build to another match, the rubber match, you could say, between these two, even on December 2nd, and then Hikaru getting the belt back, and then you're able to do a belt change on that show regardless. Like there's a lot of reasons, honestly, I could see it happening, which makes it again a match that I really wasn't too like. If you told me about this before I saw the hype for it, I wouldn't be too hyped for it. But I've convinced myself that it's an exciting match. So
yeah.
also announced for next week, they have Rey Fenix and Pac taking on the Butcher and the Blade. Jericho and Hager versus SCU, and Will Hobbs will be in action. Which is a little bit of a teaser for what is yet to come, as we have Taz join commentary. We get Team Taz making their introduction. They come out to the ring. We then get a Darby Allin video package, black and white, typical Darby stuff. He's at a church. Cool little package, nothing really crazy about it. Darby makes his entrance. We get Cody Rhodes. And Team Taz picks up the win in 11 minutes and 15 seconds. Kind of surprising.
I was hoping they would, and I kind of had an inkling that they would, because I thought...
Did you write that first? You really wrote it?
I did.
Nice.
I did. Because I thought you can't keep having these guys lose. And this isn't... There's no big stakes here. There's no title on the line. All it is pride right now, and that's the best time to have them win.
Mm-hmm. For sure, and it's cool how long this little storyline has gone on, but it's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not mad at the length of the storyline either, because it hasn't been an every week thing. They've kind of bounced back and forth, because like Ricky Starks and Darby faced off on the pre-show, I think, of the a pay-per-view before the last pay-per-view, right? So it's been a while. So I think that they did a solid job here, and boy, did they prove us wrong. And when it happened, I figured, like, wow, we should have known, because Team Taz is attacking Darby and Cody post-match. Will Hobbs comes out to make the save. He takes the FTW belt, looks at Brian Cage, and knocks Cody out with the belt. Will Hobbs has joined Team Taz. For many weeks, AJ and I chastised Taz for continuing to ask, Will Hobbs, are you going to join us? We were like, there's no way he's joining you, Taz. You are an idiot. We are the idiots, because it turns out Will Hobbs was just waiting for the right moment, and this was the right moment. After apparently beating up Team Taz a couple weeks in a row, he has now decided to join. And I
want to point out, this makes sense, because last week there was like an altercation, and everybody was out fighting, and Will Hobbs came out really late randomly.
Yep.
And now it makes perfect sense why Will Hobbs was so dopey.
To make the save, yep. It does. It makes a lot more sense. I thought he was just in the back getting his boots on, but it turns out there was some premise to that. And I appreciate that type of stuff too. And it does make sense. I'm not acting like it doesn't. They just did it in a way that is like, I'm cool with it. I'm not mad about the turn at all. I think it's a solid. It's better off for Hobbs.
I'm a little mad.
It's better off.
I'm a little mad because like every big guy they have is a heel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but in a way, it probably should be that way. Like. Because how it's just much easier to get people to hate the bigger guys, you know what I mean, than it is
because it's easier to get them to root for the underdogs than the smaller guys, and I get it, but I want one happy big dude.
Plus Cody he's the giant killer, so he needed another giant to slay. He was like,
what about Shaq?
Turn Hobbs. So I'm willing to wait and see where this goes, and because I think it's probably better for Hobbs to be a heel who's managed by Taz than to just be a face on his own. I think long term it is much better situation for him.
That's absolutely
fair. It's a little clunky
yeah.
how they got to it though. It is fair because I know for a fact, even though it took him a while last week to get out there, like pretty sure he's hit those guys with some chairs a couple times. Like he's done some shit to Team Taz that it is a little weird that now.
Oh yeah.
I wish there was just a little bit more pre-thought to it where he was constantly always late to the party. But again, it's what made us buy into the fact that, because we were just always like, Taz, you're an idiot. There was no...
Yeah.
And that makes me laugh because we should have known the more that they kept it going, like obviously they're going to do it. But that was never what I thought. So it was a solid swerve. I can't be mad at it.
No, it was a perfectly good swerve. Yeah, Will Hobbs could be a true monster heel. It's gonna have a lot of competition because you got Brody Lee and Lance Archer who are monster heels, and I good luck to him, man.
Well, I mean, let me see how much younger he is than those guys, because that's what's important to me. Yeah, if this is the right Will Hobbs, which I'm thinking it is, he was born in 1990, bro. So
Oh damn.
he's a lot younger than these guys over there. So I think that to me, that's the biggest, most important thing, is just that he's gonna be a younger guy who could probably stick around AEW for a little bit longer than your Archers and your Cages and stuff. So
Very true.
so. I'm excited. I'm excited for what AEW put together last night. As you guys could see, I'm figuring out my camera situation. But Dynamite was solid. What did you think overall, AJ? What was your favorite part of the night?
Overall, favorite part of the night. That's the Death Triangle coming back together, and that was close because I really really liked that women's match. I thought they did a damn good job, and I liked the swerve at the end a lot too. I liked a lot about this show, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Big Pac fan me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I liked a lot about the show. I think they did a really solid job with Dynamite this week, and that's what we talked about at the beginning of the show. And it's always nice when they do a great job with Dynamite and there's lots of people tuned in. So 800,000 people tuned in, a solid show. I imagine next week will be even better. And as we build to that December 2nd show, if the rating keeps getting better, like what do you expect? So we only have one more week to build to that, right? Yeah, next week. Next week, yes.
I think so.
The show before Thanksgiving, and then they will come back with that important Dynamite episode. So that is very exciting, something for people to look forward to. Next week, we will be back on Wednesday, fresh off of Dynamite, so AJ and I can enjoy our Thanksgiving festivities with the fam, as we imagine all of our viewers and listeners will be doing. But if you wake up early on Thanksgiving morning, you will catch the podcast on Spotify and all of that stuff. So listen to it while you're cooking. Listen to us talk about AEW. AJ, let people know where they can find you as we close things out.
You can follow me on Instagram at AJ and you can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ.
And as always, you can find the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. We're on Instagram at All Elite Pod. We are on Facebook at Facebook.com/All Elite Pod and YouTube at YouTube.com/All Elite Podcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. Until next time, we appreciate everybody tuning in. You guys can find me on Twitter at All Elite Andy or on Instagram at Andrew Kazir. Until next time, thank you everyone for tuning in. See ya.
Wait, isn't it Upstate Andy?
You're right, it is Upstate Andy. You got it. Find me on Twitter at Upstate Andy, Instagram at Andrew Kazir. Until